Okay, negotiating client budget. This is another huge topic a lot of you guys are asking me questions on. You've heard me say before that the first one out of you and your client to name your price loses. That is true. But what I mean by loses is whoever names the first price is probably going to end up getting the worst deal out of the two. That doesn't mean you as the videographer are going to lose the project if you name your price first. That could potentially happen, but that's not what I mean by lose. I mean, it's ideal for them to first name their budget because guess what? All clients have a budget in their mind. Even if they say they don't have a budget, they all have in their head, okay, I hope this doesn't cost me more than $2,000. And then they proceed to ask you what your price is. And then you say, well, what's your budget? And they say, I don't know, you tell me what your rate is. The goal is to not exceed that price in their mind until you've laid out what they're going to get for that price. In marketing, this is called value stacking. You don't want people to see your price until you reveal the value they're getting for the price. Any of you guys who bought my course, Full-Time Filmmaker, saw this in the webinar. I sent you to a webinar. You didn't see the price until you watched an hour of me giving you value, showing you how much I can teach you, pitching you on everything you're going to get, and then I show you the price. So the way you value stack in a situation where a client won't give you their budget, you've asked them, what's your budget? They said, oh, I don't know, or I don't have one. What's your rate? You say, well, the rate depends on what you want. I don't really know what you want. Can you tell me what your budget is so I can get a feel for what you're wanting? Well, we're wanting something along these lines, but we really don't know what that costs. I know that conversation can go on and on. So what you have to do is you have to be specific and you have to list out explicit questions to nail down exactly what they're wanting in the video project. And then you price out individually what all of those things cost. And then they can pick and choose which one of those things is most important to them, where they want to cut costs. And that way they're choosing their own budget and they can see what things cost in real time, because a lot of these clients don't actually know what things cost. So when you tell them, well, you realize to hire a second shooter, that's going to cost an extra $500 a day. And they're like, oh, then I guess we don't need that second shooter. But if you were just to tell them without explaining what that extra $500 is, well, I think this project's going to cost an extra $500 than what you think. And they're like, well, I don't think so, because you didn't value stack it. You didn't itemize it and tell them exactly what everything costs. So here are 10 questions I would ask your client to price out and itemize a budget that works for both the client and the videographer. First question to ask, what am I going to be shooting? What is the video concept or idea you're wanting to execute? This gives you, the videographer, an idea of what the project even is, if you want to shoot it, if you're capable of shooting it, and a general idea of how much it would cost you to shoot that. Until you have that information, you can't accurately give a price anyway. Now, some clients in their initial email to you will give you some of that information, but I've had clients email me where they say, hey, I need a video done. What do you charge? And I'm like, a video for what? Like, I need some information here. So that's the first question. What are we talking about here? What's the project? How big is the project? Next question is, who is the target demographic, or who is this video going to be speaking to? This isn't so much a question for pricing, but it is a question to know how you should execute the video, what kind of voice you should speak in. You need to know who your audience is, who you're speaking to in order to deliver an effective message. This also might depend on who you might hire to help you execute the project. Next question I always like to ask is, do you have a specific video example you can show me that you want us to replicate or create something along those lines? This is a huge thing because most people who want a video done already have something in their mind. They see a video and say, ooh, I want something like that for my business. And so if they can send you a video, you instantly have an idea of the scope of the project. If they send you a video that was shot on an iPhone with somebody just going around their office space, then you know that their expectations are pretty low and therefore their budget is probably pretty low. But if they send you a Nike commercial, then you know their expectations are high and either their budget is really high or they don't really realize how much something's going to cost. And you're going to have to tell them, based on that video you sent me, you realize their budget was $100,000. And that then tells them, oh, wow, I didn't realize that something that nice costs that much. So that then puts in perspective budgets and what to expect from someone like you. So always have them send you a video example. That's also going to let you know if you're even capable of delivering on what they want. Again, setting clear expectations up front. If they send something that's really high end that you're not capable of, then you may just have to say, Alec, I can't do that. Do you have any other examples that I might be able to achieve? Because that was all CGI and I can't do CGI. Next question I ask is, where will this video be distributed? Is it for your website? Is it for social media organic posts? Is it a social media paid ad? Understanding where the video is going to end up, where it's going to be distributed, will help guide you in one, how to create it, but also help you gauge what the price should be on a project like that. If it's for a TV commercial, instantly you should be saying, okay, you're going to be spending hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of dollars in advertising behind the this video, then the budget to make the video should probably be a bit higher. But if it's for a Facebook post on their Facebook page, budget's gonna be a bit lower. So we're gauging expectations here, guys. Next question I ask is, how long do you want the video to be? This again lets you know the scope of the project. If it's gonna be a 1-hour documentary versus a 1-minute Instagram post, that's obviously gonna vary the price that you're gonna charge. Or they may say, well, we want a 2-minute website video, 1-minute Instagram post, a 5-minute video for this, and a 30-second video for that. Then it's like, okay, well, that's 4 videos. And so we're gonna have to charge you for different edits. So that's going to be different prices as well. Next question I ask is, how many days worth of shooting do you expect this project to be? Sometimes they're not gonna know that answer, but a lot of times they say, well, it's an event that goes for 3 days. So we expect you to travel 1 day, shoot for 3 days, and then travel the 5th day. It's like, okay, well, now I know that's 3 full days of shooting and 2 travel days. I'm gonna factor that into the price. Or it might just be, yeah, it's just, you know, for a couple hours down the street over here. Okay, well, that's a much different scope of project than a week long in Las Vegas. Next question I ask is, will the project require travel? Or will it be somewhere local where I don't have to get room and board and plane tickets and pay for food on the road and all that? In this, I also like to ask them about the location we're gonna be shooting at and if they have permission to film there, or if I'm gonna have to go get a permit, because that also costs money. Next question I ask is, will this project require hiring actors, or me having to hire more contractors like second shooters or a producer or an audio guy, whatever they're specifically wanting for their project. They may have certain positions that need to be filled by multiple people on set, and that will obviously affect the price. Also within this question is, what kind of props need to be bought, or costumes, or anything extracurricular expenses that need to be factored into the project. Next question I ask is, when does this need to be shot? That might change whether I can even take the project, because I might be booked elsewhere or not be available on those specific dates. So always ask the dates to make sure we're not just wasting our time talking here, and first check that I'm even available. Next question is, when do you need the video done by? Again, if I have a lot of projects on my plate that I need to fulfill for older clients, I don't want to pick up a new client that I'm not going to be able to fulfill on time, thus ruining that relationship and squandering something that's potentially going to give me more work. And then lastly, any other special requests? Are there any specific color grade styles you're wanting? Specific aspect ratios? Styles of movement like glide camming or handheld? Most clients aren't going to care about the nitty-gritty technical details, but some might care about the frame rates you shoot in, or the resolutions you're shooting in, or the type of camera you're on and the lens choice you're going with. So communicating all of that up front, asking those questions, saying, okay, answer these questions and I'll be able to tell you exactly how much it's going to cost based on your needs and your expectations. If they're expecting a red camera and you don't own one, that's going to be an extra $500 a day that you're going to have to charge to execute exactly what they want. So those are the questions I ask. I'm now going to give you an example of a back and forth between a client and videographer to show you how you could price out a project based on the client's needs. In this example, I am both the client and the videographer. I'm starting a new business next door called the Golf Loft, and I need a video for it to advertise it on my website and on social media. And I'm also going to shoot it for myself. So I'm going to show you kind of the back and forth of how I'd set clear expectations as the client and how I'd price it out as the videographer, and we'd come together on an agreement that we both want. We have our list of questions. I'm going to answer them and then price out based on the answer. So first, what are we going to shoot? Client says a commercial for my new business, and typically clients are going to give you shorter answers than you want. So I'm going to make this kind of realistic. That's probably what I'd get. Next question, who's the target demographic? About 20 to 60-year-old males. Do you have a video example so I know what you have in mind? I'm going to play hard to get and say, I don't, sorry. That makes my job harder as a videographer, but that happens. Where will this video be distributed? I, as the client, need a 2-minute video and also a 1-minute organic Instagram post. How long do you want the video to be? Just answered it above. How many days of shooting? It's a fairly simple shoot, should be just 2 or 3 hours. And anytime somebody tells you 2 or 3 hours, it usually means at least half a day. So plan on 4 or 5 hours at the least. And when pricing, we'll talk about this, never charge less than your half-day rate at least. Even if they say it's only going to be 10 minutes to get out of bed, I'm charging a half-day rate. Will the project require travel? Nope, it's next door. Will it require hiring actors? Yes. We'll need one good golfer for the evening. Okay, good to know. No other props besides his golf clubs. Okay. When and where do you want to shoot? Tomorrow at 7 to 9 p.m. right after sun goes down. Next door to you. When do you need the video done by? 1 week. Quick turnaround. Good to know. That might change what I price. Any other special requests? If they're asking you, usually they like your style. They like your color grades. They like your movement style. They like what you've produced in the past. So that should generally be an answer that, well, I like what you do, so do something similar to that. I know specifically that that I want it shot in at least 4K resolution, and I'd like slow-mo shots of the swing. So that tells me I'm gonna need a camera with at least some higher frame rates, 60 frames per second, maybe 120 frames per second. This might be a good time to specify and say, hey, well, do you have a video of exactly what type of slow motion you're talking about? Because if they're seeing videos of 1,000 frames per second and then you come with 60 frames per second to the shoot, their expectations are here, you give them this, they're like, do you have anything slower? Well, I don't have a camera that goes slower, so that would have been good to know, so I could have rented a slow-mo camera. I, being the client, knowing what I want, I'm thinking 120 frames per second is gonna be good enough. I own those cameras, so I'm not gonna have to rent anything. Okay, so my client's answered my questions. Now I'm gonna go through and price things out for him to show him, okay, if this is what you want, here's how much everything's gonna cost. Here's your total. How does that sound? If he says, it's higher than I thought, okay, where can we cut back? Let's compromise and negotiate that budget. So first questions, I've done commercials before. I feel like I can speak to that demographic, so I'm feeling capable to shoot it. You don't have an example, okay, that's tough, but that happens. 2-minute video and a 1-minute video, that's gonna take potentially 2 to 3 hours to shoot. Okay, so let's price this out here. Budget for 2 to 3 hours. Again, I don't get out of bed unless I'm getting paid at my half-day rate. My full day rate is $2,000. Half-day rate, I personally charge about $1,200. So I tell them $1,200 is my half-day rate. I also tell them, let's set some expectations. 2 to 3 hours might not be enough. Can we schedule 4 to 5 hours just to be safe? Let's set that expectation. I'm gonna work half a day, give me half a day to shoot in that time slot. You might as well use me for that many hours because that's what you're paying for, and I don't work for anything less. Now my editing rate is $1,000, but you want 2 edits done. I'll give you a deal and we'll say $1,500 for 2 edits. So we have our shooting rate, our editing rate, and those 2 things, what you charge per day of shooting and what you charge per edit, is something you're gonna have to figure out. We have the budget calculator in the course to help you determine what your time is worth, but you have to be the one to determine what your time is worth. If your demand is low, that price is going to be lower. If your demand is high, that price is going to be higher. If you're begging for work, needing any kind of work you can get, then you may have to be willing to budge on what your ideal day rate is and what you think your time is worth, because clearly it's not worth that much if nobody wants to hire you. So I can't tell you what your day rates and your editing rates should be. You got to figure that out for yourself. How fast do you edit? What's your time worth if you edit a video in a week? What do you want to get paid in that amount of time? All those are questions you have to ask for yourself in your own business. Use the budget calculator to get an idea, set your prices, stick to them. Unless you need the work, then obviously be willing to go for less. I don't need the work, I'm sticking to these prices, that's what I charge. Okay, will the project require travel? Nope. Okay, no extra money there. We do need a golfer though. Okay, I have a buddy, I can pay him to come shoot it. I'll negotiate with him and say we'll pay him $300 for a few hours to come hit some balls for me. Let me direct him. So I'm going to factor that into the price. Now this is a 1-week turnaround, which is quicker than I usually want to turn it around. So I'm going to charge a $200 rush fee because normally I give myself 2 weeks. And so we're going to give a little bit of a rush fee because you want this turned around so quick. You want 4K resolution. You want it shot in slow-mo. I have a red camera. However, it's super expensive. Shooting on it does cause wear and tear. So I always factor in a $300 wear and tear per day of shooting on any of my stuff. And if we're going to be shooting slow motion, we have to bring some lights, which also has wear and tear. So $300 wear and tear on gear, but I won't need a second shooter. I haven't discovered this yet because they didn't give me a video example of what they wanted, but I'll eventually, as the client, tell them that I do want a voiceover done to it. And so that's going to be another $200 that I'm going to have to hire a voice actor and someone to write a script. Actually, we'll say $300 to both write and do the voiceover for a script. So let's add all that together. And our price that we're going to propose to the client, our budget is going to be $3,800 total for their commercial. Now me as a client, I'm thinking, that's a little steep. I get what you're charging me for, but my budget initially, I was hoping to stay around $2,000. That's pretty typical, right? They always thought it would be cheaper, but once they see it priced out, they're like, okay, well, where can I cut on cost here? You know what, maybe I only need the 1 edit. I could save me $500. Maybe I don't need the rush fee. That could save me $200. Maybe I don't need 4K. That could save me $300. Maybe I don't need a voiceover. That could save me $300. And so you start to show the client where they could save money depending on what they're wanting. Or you can say, hey, look, this is what I charge. And if they still can't get it low enough, so let's say the client cuts the rush fee and the second edit. Now you're at $3,100. Clients now disclose that they were thinking that $2,000 is more where they wanted to be. So they did have a budget after all, even though they didn't say they did. But now that you know their budget and you've come in at the price that is ideal for you, now you guys negotiate, you cut the rush fee, you cut one of the extra edits. That comes down to $31. You're like, you know what? I'll just do it for $3,000 flat. That kind of gets us in between what we're both wanting, makes it worth my time and gets you closer to your budget. How does $3,000 sound? Okay, a little more than I wanted, but you're really good at your job and I do want everything else you have to offer, and so I'm willing to pay a little bit more. Let's go with that, $3,000. That's how you negotiate a budget. You don't compromise on what you're worth unless you absolutely need the work or they're willing to compromise on their needs. Now, if you're about to lose the job and they're like, you know what, even $3,000 is too steep, you then have to make the decision, okay, am I willing to do all of this for only $2,000? It's below me. There's opportunity costs here. What if someone knocks on my door tomorrow and is willing to pay $4,000 for a similar project scope? I will have made half as much to do a similar project. So you have to think of those things. But if there's nothing coming in the pipelines, then absolutely you're going to take that $2,000 price tag and just go with it because you need the work, you need to pay the bills. For me, I'm not hurting for work. I have more than I can take. I'm sticking to my guns and I'm saying $3,000 is as low as I'm going to go, take it or leave it. And they have to decide if they want to negotiate with somebody else and find somebody in similar quality that's cheaper, or if they're just going to bite the bullet, spend a little extra and go with you. Now, especially if somebody's paying more than they were hoping, you better over deliver and give them an awesome experience so they understand, wow, that was really worth it. In fact, if I ever need them again, I'm going to hire them again. I'm going to be willing to pay that same amount. And if anybody asks me, I'm going to tell them he's worth the money. You definitely want to go with this guy. That is the whole idea of setting expectations up front, over delivering, and that's going to help you land more clients. But that's my process for negotiating a budget. Now, if they do give you their budget first, you would still ask all these questions, but then you would cater your pricing around their budget so that you're coming in at the price they want and saying, well, I know you want some of these things, but that's going to cost a lot. So I've built a package around your budget that you want. You can have everything you wanted, but it is going to cost more. Here's how much it would cost for everything you wanted, and here's what you can get for the price that you're wanting to pay. See how that works? It's basically an upsell. I can do the job for your budget, but if you want the job the way you want it done, it is going to cost more. So you choose. You want to pay more and have more, or do you want to pay less and have less? Leave it up to them. But that's it for negotiating budget. Once the budget is set, you've both agreed upon it. Next, it's time to set clear expectations for both parties and then put that in a contract so that you both clearly know what you expect, when the payment should be due, all that, and we'll talk about that next.